Okay. It's Monday. Yep, it is. It's a Monday. And I didn't get rid of the little red line on the screen there. I don't know. I never know if you can see that or not, but when I change the text, I don't know if you can see the cursor. I don't know what you can see really. Actually, I sort of can because there's a screen up there that's supposed to show me what is being streamed, like the paper towel with, you know, basically what you're seeing is the failure of my camera person and director to keep things on screen so that you can see what's going on. But yeah, it's Monday and it's time to do stuff with Dyson Dungeons, and the stuff I'm doing is continuing the work on the Star Trek Enterprise command bridge. And the things I'm working on today are the minifigs and these panels, all of these display control panels. There's a bunch of them, and each of these things on there, these are decals, and so there's just a lot of decals to put on. And that's what I'll be doing today, is putting on decals. But first, there's always a but first, is the minifigs. So we've got Spock, Sulu, and Kirk. And that's them. They're headless at the moment because their heads are in that box over there. There's Sulu and Spock and Kirk. And Kirk is sitting in the chair, so his minifig looks kind of weird right now. These minifigs were not all that well injection molded. And so, when the fronts and the backs were put together, there were big seams, like gaps and seams and things showing. And I got Spock and Sulu sanded down and primed, and Kirk, I got the body, which was really bad. To say the body was really badly done in terms of its molding quality, but now it's not too bad. But then the arms were separate, and you can see that there's this action figure-esque separation between the arms and the body. So what I had said I would do last week when I talked about what I would be doing today is that I'm going to put filler in the tops of the shoulders here and then sand that down, and hopefully when it's primed, it will not look like he has prosthetically attached arms. We'll see how that goes. These guys are just waiting to be headed, not beheaded. They are already beheaded. They need to have their heads attached. Their heads are in the box. They need to come out and be primed and sanded down and then primed, because they always have mold marks on them. But I'm going to put them up here out of the way, and then get this green putty. It's actually quite green, so it's aptly named green putty because it's green and it's putty. Get a toothpick for a spatula. Use a used towel in case I get green putty on stuff. It's all wrinkly, but there it is. So I'll be using paper towels for the decals, lots of wet paper towels. Oozing out already. It's green. Take my glasses off so I can see up close, kind of rituals. This stuff should dry in like an hour or so. And then I can sand it. I'm putting on way too much because I want to make sure it fills the gap. And, it just gets sanded off anyway. Yeah, it looks like part of his uniform. If it had been put on more neatly, it could have been part of his uniform. Well, that was bad. Tried to get one little. I said I was putting on way too much, but I didn't mean like it needed to be that much. Well, yeah. So I'm starting this morning by making a mess, and then, of course, I'm sticking my finger in the stuff, right? That's how this goes, is I get it. It's going kind of okay, and then I do a little bit too much, and then it makes a big mess, and then I stick my finger in it. Sometimes it's paint. Sometimes I don't know I stick my finger in it, in which case I'll then put my finger on, something else and get the paint on it. Well, okay. Well, it's just messy, but I'll be sanding it and cleaning it up. I have to be careful to preserve all the wrinkles in the clothing here. Their tunics are incredibly wrinkled. It seems to be a feature rather than a flaw. Okay, well, it's just really messy, and there it is. Kirk's got green stuff, putty on his shoulders, and they'll be sanded down, and then hopefully they'll look okay when they're primed. I'll find out after I prime it, after I sand it, after I clean this off. Okay, well, there's a start. I'm glad I did that first. Hopefully got the mess out of the way, because I made quite a mess of something really that was supposed to be simple. But the feature today is working on these display panels. When they after the painting, after much painting, they came out okay. Okay. That is to say that I got the bottom in off-white. I got the red stripe painted. I got the top multi-layers of paint to get these different, the white and then the gray and then the even whiter white around the panel frames, and then this that's darker metallic that is the color of the display panels, and then decals go on here and here, all along here, and all 8 of these things, and along the top of that. So I've got many decals, a number. I mean, these alone, 8 times 4, there's 32 little square ones, all just that. And there's 8 larger ones, and then there's a decal that goes on each one. So I just need to plug away at it. These 3 here look identical. In fact, they are identical, but they have different numbers on them. and the different number tells me that different decals go on each one, and they go in a different location. Number came off, but I can tell which one that is because it's half the size of the others. But yeah, I'm working on this little one first. I'll finish this, and then I'll do communications panel number 8 and finish that. And then I've got these 3 panels back here, which are 10, 12, and 14, having done the little one and 8. You tell which is which. This is 12. This is 14. So this must be 10, even though, yeah, it kind of. I don't need to have them all here. I'll do this one first, which is panel. It's here. I need decals number 7. This was decal 12. Used to be there. Used to be, but now it's not because it's there now. So these 4 go up here, and then these go here. So what I'm going to do is there it is, my decal cutting scissors, is I'm going to cut this whole grouping out of the decal sheet. These are decal 7. They're just 5 decals, but they say it's 7. So I'm going to do these little squares first, and then this is just one decal. Okay, this whole thing, you can really, you didn't see anything. You didn't see anything of what I was doing because camera person and director, they're just not paying attention. These squares. Yeah, now that it's on camera, I'll start over. Now that this is on camera, these 4 things go here, 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 and here, like that. Okay, and then this goes on the flat panel. And I have a decision to make because this is just one decal. Okay, and I can just apply it as one decal, or what I can do, which would actually make it look better, is I could cut out each of the 3 parts and apply them separately. And it would look better because you can see the shininess, okay? So if I cut out each one separately, the shininess, there wouldn't be like this intermediate shininess between there and there. It would just be 3 shiny panels. And the same thing is true of the other 4, where these curved parts and that little bit there are, I could cut out each one and put them on separately so that you don't get the shininess in between them. And these 3 are pretty straight. Well, they're not really. This one gets a little futzy. This one is really futzy because they got these little bits here. I don't know if it's worth the effort in this model to take each of these sections separately. It might not be because then they'd all have to be carefully lined up. If I just leave them on the sheet like this, then they're all lined up the way they're supposed to be lined up. These two are essentially the same. Which one goes on here anyway? Oh yeah, this 11. This fancy bit. Number 10. All this fancy stuff here goes here on panel number 10. 14. Well, I'll just have to make sure I get them on the right ones. Okay, so I made a decision, looking at this, it's not too bad. It would have been 3 parts. But looking at this one, and these wouldn't have been too bad. I mean, I probably could have gotten them in alignment. This one would be really tough to, well, there's even a little bit way up in the corner. It could be done. I mean, if I were really trying to do an A level, completion of this model, I would trim out each of these decals separately, including even these in that little bit. But I'm not. I'm going for like a B. This model was meant to be a kind of relaxing diversion from the Savoia that I had completed and the Lotus Ford that I was working on. Well, now I've got like a ton of paper towels here. This is going to just be a soaking place. It's going to be very wet, and use it to soak the decals until they decide to come off. I guess I'll just start. I'm going to start in this corner. That's the hardest part because it's way up underneath there. And I'm going to keep them. I don't know if I need to, but I'm going to keep them in, or at least try to keep them in the same order on which they appear on the paper. So this one would go in this orientation, the buttons on the left. Okay, I'm going to remember the buttons on the left. Yeah, trying to keep not only the location, but also the orientation. It's going to be really easy to put one of these in the wrong place, upside down or even sideways, because they're squares. I don't know if anyone would be able to tell that it was upside down. I don't know if you'd be able to tell that or not, but I'm going to try not to do that. Okay, with some of the larger ones, I had been putting them right into the water and then bringing them back out, but these are small enough that I could end up losing it. I'm going to try this. I'm going to do like several of these at a time. Okay. I hope this just speeds things up without causing a problem. The thing with decals, this is something I learned that anybody who is doing any kind of modeling, it's one of those things that's actually a modeling hint like this isn't a how-to show, but this is a how-to. There's always a lot of decal material around the edges, and every instruction says trim them as closely to the paint as possible so you don't have that shiny stuff sticking out all over, which in this case is kind of pointless because the one that goes on the display panel on the bottom just has a lot of shiny stuff on it just by design. It's upside down or not? No. Get a toothpick. Sometimes these are helpful to move them around if they're not exactly in the right place. To get some water on there. In this case, it'd be helpful to be left-handed, really. Do that. I would do it the opposite of the direction I usually do things. To get it centered in the frame there. With these, there's always either too much water or not enough. If you doing decals, you'll discover that that's always the case. You want to be able to move them around, and then there's not enough water under them so they don't float, right? And then you want them to stay where they are because you finally got it to where they're supposed to be. But then there's too much water, and they just keep floating. I did this one first. It's really kind of a pain. Okay. Is this one ready to come off? Probably. I sometimes think that you think this would go really fast, right? I usually think that sticking on the decals, because when I used to build models as a kid, you know, when I was like 7, 8, 9, 10, I kept building them till I was maybe 15. You know, I'd get more sophisticated models like had Big Daddy Roth, Fink models, something just a little more unusual. This seems a little too far to the left. Well, anyway, it was one of those things again where there's enough water and then there was too much. So there was always like the last things that went on the model after it was glued together, and it was just nothing ever got painted when I was really little. When I was like 8 or 9 or 10, didn't have paints. It came later. Well, I think it's just this location. So the dark, okay, trying to get the orientations, maintaining orientations of these. In this case, the upper right corner is a dark rectangle. I think I'll remember that. These little bits of paper are gonna, they just end up everywhere and they get in the way. I just remember when putting the decals on was always kind of it was like the conclusion, it was done. And I don't remember it ever being a challenging thing at all. It just wasn't. It was like you just cut them out and stuck them on, and that was it. Kind of made sure they were straight, and that was about all. But now I'm finding that decals are actually some of the more challenging bit, trimming them, which you can't see because I'm off camera again, trimming them, really close to the paint so that the shiny bits don't show around the outside, so it looks like it's actually painted on instead of stuck on as a decal. Getting them in the right orientation and the right location. Having a whole lot of these little bits of paper everywhere, including being stuck on one's fingers. Orientation, that's good. So this bit about putting on a wet paper towel, I never did that. I just let them float in the water until they came off. And then if I was really lucky, and I never, sometimes was, sometimes wasn't, the decal would float to the surface. The paper would sink and the decal would float to the surface, and then I would just pick it up out of the water with my finger, and it would stick to my finger, and it would go where it's supposed to go. Sometimes that always seemed to work, but now it doesn't. Now I can't even grip it with a. You're seeing decal acrobatics here. What a thing. Okay. an example of too much water. Now I soak some of it up, and it won't be quite in the right place. And now it's not going to want to move. I lied. It is moving. I guess that looks okay. Yeah, so I used to become a catchphrase now. As one gets older, there's a whole lot of stuff that used to. Okay. There used to be a tree here. That used to be a grocery store. Used to be able to get a candy bar and then a whole Hershey's bar, an entire large size Hershey's bar, larger than you can get now because they keep downsizing everything. Used to be able to get that for 10 cents. 10 cents, that used to be a dime. The dime used to be made out of silver, real silver, believe it or not. You had like real pieces of silver jingling around in your pocket all the time because your dimes and quarters, like silver, really. To believe it wasn't jewelry, it was just pocket change. A nickel used to be called a nickel because it used to be made out of nickel. Can do lots of used tos. There, that's how that looks now. That there's stuff on there, and yeah, there's little rectangles, and little squares inside the squares there. Now this, yeah, like I said, I could cut this off and get rid of the, make it three different pieces and put it on so that the shiny bits didn't shine in the middle, but it's just not going to happen. This one would have been fairly easy to do. Some of the others would have been just very difficult. So I'm going to do as much trimming as I can without doing any harm. I hopefully do no harm. See how it turns out. But there's going to be the shiny bits all, in between the panel parts because it's just the way it's going to be. No matter how closely I trim around the edges like this, there's nothing that really can be done. So I pulled each part out separately, which was tempting to do, but I'm not going to succumb to that temptation. It'll look okay. I mean, it's going to look, it's just going to look the way it's going to look. saying this one's not too bad. It's got 3 pieces. There's one tiny one, but most of them are fairly large. But some of the others, there's one in there that just has, it would have been extremely difficult to parse out those parts. I mean, just really, it would have been really, really hard to do that. I am tempted. I'm going to try this. I'm going to cut out some of this interior stuff. Just kind of minimizing. I'm going to minimize the amount of tiny bits without destroying the integrity of the decal here. So there. This is going to have to soak a while. It's pretty big. And I can do this there. While that is soaking a while, I'm going to clean up some of this paper. What I should do, I should bring a trash receptacle. Well, I'm just going to pile them up and clean them off later. There's a trash pile off camera. Okay, so this display, these control bits are kind of oddly not centered. You can see this, which you can't see. You can see the picture here. It's just off to the side. Okay. You can see it here too. That's in the middle. That roundy bit there is in the middle, and the rest is off to the side. And over there, there's just, I don't know, a place to put your coffee or something, which you couldn't do because it's not flat. But this is in the center. So this is supposed to go right there. Well, at the rate this is going, which is slow, I'm not sure I'll get them all done today. Be doing decals on Wednesday as well. That's it's can't really put it in the center because then there's no room for it. It got all wrinkled. I'll just have to put it here somehow so it looks kind of like it's supposed to look. See, on the picture on the front, this is centered, but if I center it, it's way over to the side. It needs to be here in the instructions. It's over to the left a little bit. Kind of thinking, that's at a weird angle. I'm kind of thinking this should be parallel to that, but if I rotate that, then the center part is, I think, I think that's where it's going to be. I think that looks okay. Toward the edge a little bit. But I'm going to go with this being symmetric and then this just going where it goes. Yeah. This one, this is the weapons control panel. And I was saying when I first got that out, apparently we are firing our weapons at a purple blob. You know, probably some sort of curious life form that we misinterpreted, misunderstood, and decided to attack. But there it is, and it looks kind of, that especially looks kind of weird, but that's how it's set up. That's the angle it's set at. So there, this one's done. Now the next one, which actually should have been the first one up here, is the communications panel. That's number 8. It's this one. I'm going to put this up. I'm going to put this in the done spot. There's an area of doneness up here. You can't see it because it's done. 8. Decals. Decal 11. Decal number 11 goes on this one. These are these here. This whole chunk of stuff. Decal number 11. Measure twice, cut once. There's 8 of these instead of 4, so you can count on it taking twice as long. But up on top are decals number 19 and 20. Okay, well, is that the 9? Can't read anymore. 19 and 20. Decal 11. These are already on, the little orange ones on the bottom. 19 and 20. Go on here in the communications one. So we got some little bar graph things here that is telling the communications officer something about the communication that's going on. And a picture of a planet. Red, white, and blue planet. I don't know what's up with that. That doesn't look very livable. So I don't think anybody, I don't know, they might be communicating with that. Number 22 is gone. That's somewhere else already. That went on the side of the elevator. Okay, well, I want to put these big ones on first. Blue is on the upper left. I don't want to get the planet upside down. I guess I was muttering on about how, when I built models when I was like 9 or 10, just let the decals float in the water until the decal floated off of the paper. And I don't remember there being a disaster very often. There should have been, because that's just really not the way to do it. But If I recall correctly, the paper went to the bottom of the water dish. I think I just used like a bowl, probably from the kitchen. My mom let me use one. Yeah, the paper would sink to the bottom, the decal would float on the top, and then somehow it would just stick to my finger. That's what I recall. And dip it in the water to get it started, and then let it sit here on do the paper towel bit again. I suppose what I could do is, while that's soaking, is cut out number 19, which goes on the left side. We could get some more soaking wet wads of paper towel and let this one soak too. I could do that. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll stay on camera. Maybe not. And I think it was the instructions for the decals for the Lotus Ford, which are aftermarket decals. I think those instructions were the ones that talked about letting them sit on a wet paper towel instead of floating in a dish full of water. So that's not my insight. That's not my discovery of how to. Okay, it's from instructions that I read. It's this way. Does it look better? I don't think it much matters which way it goes. I think it actually looks better this way. This way. I'm going to put it on this way, even if it's contrary. This one start to soak while I put this one on. Go like that. Sometimes, yeah, I mean, that went in the right place, so you just need to stop fuddling with it. Can you imagine what this would be like if you were using a solvent, even alcohol, much less something like mineral spirits or acetone or something like that? Wow, that would be something. Okay, well, that fit in the panel pretty well. Let me get that corner. There's all like little lumps in there. It's not perfectly flat. I think the surface it's I don't know if those, I think it's little bits of water underneath. Too much. Yeah, I was dabbing at it and I like moved it to the left. If I can move it again or not. It might be kind of where it's going to be. So intent on getting the little bubbles out that I wasn't looking at. I was pushing it slightly left. Can only get too compulsive about it. Let's see, this one should be slidey now. It's interesting. It doesn't quite fill the screen the other way. It's like a little smaller. Weird. Okay, well, there. This is communication. So there's like, I don't know why they've got bar graphs at the communication panel, but they do. Decals are just always way too shiny. The I decided to try to start building models again, which was quite some time ago. The kids were like in middle school and not home very often, that kind of thing. So I thought, well, let me find out how to build models good, right? How to do it right. So I bought a couple of books, and it was actually kind of discouraging about how much effort needs to go into making a plastic model look okay. Trying to keep the orientation correct. As I trim this, I rotate it, and then I lose track of the tops and the bottoms. The 4 buttons are in the upper right. So that's where I learned, oh, you can fill in the seams. Oh, yeah, that's a thing. I actually did that when I was a later teen, when I was building the Big Daddy Roth models, the Finks that I've talked about before. I'm assuming the ones on the top are on the left. I'm just making that assumption. That might not be the case. I thought, when I was otherwise building models, it was like, well, there's seams in the models, right? You just glue them together and kind of squish them together. And thank you, camera guy. maybe, the seams will show, and that's the way it is. And then when I started building the Sphinx, I thought, well, this doesn't look that good really with seams showing. So I actually filled them in using the paint. Okay, you could still kind of see the depression, where they were, but there wasn't a gap there anymore. But then I got this model building book that said use auto body putty, and I actually did on one model that I've never finished really. Is with auto body putty, and it worked. I mean, it works pretty well because it hardens really, really hard, and you can sand it down to the same finish as the plastic. Some other putties don't. They either don't harden enough. They just don't get hard enough so that I shouldn't have this here. Just asking to be spilled on. So that the texture is wrong. And that's the most common problem, is that the texture doesn't match that of the plastic. And so, you can fill in the gaps, but then you still have a seam line. So this book was written quite a while ago. Okay, that's why they didn't have all sorts of other modeling putties. Maybe they did, but screwing this up by just not thinking it through. Grab it with the tweezers, put it in place, pull it out. You can buy Bondo. You can buy giant quantities of it because, when you're doing a car, there's a lot more surface area than there is on a model. You can buy it in a little tube, like a toothpaste tube, and that's what I did. And I was making an ME 262, and there were a lot of seams that showed. The whole thing, after I put the Bondo on it, it looks like, if you were in an auto body shop, it looked like a kind of a junker car that got all filled in. Never painted it because I needed to use an airbrush. That's when I bought an airbrush and started using it and found out I couldn't figure out how to use it without making a hideous mess of everything. Everything just messy, messy, messy. I learned my lesson. Pick this up with the tweezers first. Maybe. And then slide it into place. Using tools. Look at me. I become a tool using person. But the decals are supposed to look like they're painted on. So this book talked about how to make that happen. And the very first thing it said was cut the decal as close to the painted part as possible so that you don't have, the shiny bits around it. Went on to say the only way you can really make it look painted on is to put an overcoat. So you paint the model first, and if you're doing a matte finish, like a camouflage on a World War II fighter or something. So you're using flat paint, not glossy paint. If you're using flat paint, you attach the decal, and now you've got this glossy thing that doesn't look like it's painted on, and then spray it over coated with a matte finish, clear coat. That demands a lot of painting skill, okay, because you have to get the paint on right to begin with, and then you have to get the overcoat on without having drips and runs and in a mess, right? But then they talked about what do you do if you've got a glossy surface, like a GB, the eraser or a plane that has a glossy surface on it. And it's like, well, that makes it more difficult because decals don't always adhere to glossy paint very well. So this is what they told you to do. Seriously, and I think master modelers probably actually do this, but I couldn't imagine doing this without having a disaster at some point. So you paint your model in glossy, okay, and then you're going to put decals on. So you take the entire model, the whole model, and put a matte clear coat on it. And you do the whole thing, not just where you're putting the decal, but you have to do the whole thing. Otherwise, you get, discontinuous surface textures. You get a mess of different surface textures. So you paint it in glossy, then clear coat it in matte, put the decals on, and then clear coat it in glossy again. And they even showed a cutaway version of all the different layers that you end up with the decal kind of stuck in between these layers. It's like, oh, that is something I cannot do. There is no possible way I'm going to be able to get one coat of paint on, much less 2 layers of clear coat, and have it look good. So I never attempted that. I have attempted, though, with some success of cutting really close to the edges. I've been able to do that. And I've got a lump right in the middle of that decal. Really, that's unfortunate. They're decals. And what you're going to do, like a bubble right in the middle of it. So these decals have gone from the final little bit that you just kind of slap on a model that has seams showing all over the place to becoming almost as much of an effort as painting, as detail painting. So you would think that this would go, quickly, but it doesn't. Oh yeah, well, yeah, my monologue stopped. It was like, well, I suppose I said words. I ran out of words to say. Yeah, so I read this book about applying decals, and it was, oh my God. You have to be really, really good with an airbrush. Paint, after you've filled in all the seams with auto body putty and sanded it down and made it look good, and in the process of doing that, not sanding out any of the little rivets that the model has as details, right? After you've done that with some sort of level of eye-hand coordination that I find almost incomprehensible, then you paint it with your airbrush and then put on decals and then clear coat it and then put on decals and then clear coat it again, and somehow or other you're supposed to end up with a model that hasn't succumbed to a disaster along the way. I don't know. I'm not sure how that can happen. That's not something you will ever see on this stream because it's way beyond my skill level. Hi, Who. I can do a flip. This is actually kind of a good time to do a flip. I'm halfway through putting the decals in the little squares here on the communications panel. I need to flip a small thing though. Flip one of these little balsa things with good. There's no marker on it. Maybe I should look in the right place. That was silly. Here. This is a multiple landing zone thing. So it's got 4 sides. There's a red one, circles, COs, green, and X's. Green, red, O, green, red. Whoa, okay. 2 greens, 2 reds, O's, 3 reds, X's never came up. There's the flip. Thanks for joining in, Who. I hope you had a good weekend. Again, I'm trying to keep the orientation correct here. I'm not sure how much difference it makes in terms of the orientation of these, but you know, the model makers seem to think that this should be the top, so why not try to remember to put that on the top? This one seems a little, well, the little buttons are on the right. So remember, the little buttons are on the right. I just need to remember that for like 30 seconds. If I do. This one's nice and flat. This one's all lumpy here. Let me turn it over. There's a flat surface there. Oh, that's better. Oh yeah. You fixed your ear issue? Okay, so what did you do to fix your ear issue? I know that you had like a ear infection. Did it just finally clear up, or did you actually do something over the weekend to finish the fix? I'm just curious about that. I know that there was a problem up until recently, at least. Go to like an ear chiropractor. Things in your ear can be really irksome. I remember when we were young, again, like 9, 10, 11 years old, there was a county park with a swimming pool. It was, you know, probably a little less than a mile away. It was quite a long hike, actually. And we would go there a couple times a week. And I was never very good at swimming. I'm quite good at sinking. But we went to the pool and I'd splash around and kind of stay on the shallow end where I'd kind of paddle around, you know, but I knew that I could stand up. As long as I knew that I could stand up and not sink, like the water was not over my head, right? Yeah, it's okay, but then get water in one's ear and it just like killed your hearing. Sometimes it took a full day before it leaked out. That'd be this little bubble of warm water going down your neck onto your collar. Yeah, that wasn't all. That was a bad side effect of flopping around in the water. My brother was more, it was fitting. Not that I am into astrology or not, but he's a Pisces. But yeah, extremely comfortable in the water, life saving and mile swim and all sorts of snorkeling and scuba diving, all sorts of being in the water kind of stuff. I am not a fan of being in water over my head. The time coming along here. About half through. Yeah, this just at the pace this is going, and they're not just like slapping one on right after the other here. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to get all the decals done today, but I'll keep at it until the time is up. Point I need to go back. I don't know if I'll get to it today or not. To Kirk's shoulders. I'm not going to get to it today. So I'm just going to keep doing decals until I don't have any more time, and then I'll stop doing decals because I'll stop the stream. And then on Wednesday, it looks like I'll be doing decals again. This one's just not. It's one of those that just it floats around way more than I. There, it's going to stay there. That's an interesting display. It's definitely some sort of communication thing, isn't it? Let's remember that the row of 1 is at the top. Got it oriented sideways now, so that's been interesting. This one, not sure it much matters whether it goes this way or this way. It's a little flaw in it. I'm going to put the flaw at the top where it's least visible. So after all of these decals, these panels, these display panels get attached to the circle which makes up the bridge, which is over on the side there on a shelf. And somehow they get attached. I'll have to figure that out because they're just not going to fit very well. I just know based on the way the rest of this model has been, that the fit and finish isn't all that good. So I'll have to be like force fit somehow. But I suppose this is good practice, because then the next step is to put the decals on the Lotus Ford that I was building, that I had almost finished until I found out that the decal sheet, the aftermarket decal sheet, was not at all like what I expected, and that I ruined it. And I had to order new ones, and they finally arrived. I couldn't order them until September 1st, and they arrived around 3 weeks later. By then, I had committed to this model. But yeah, the decals for that are going to be it's a real challenge, getting all the sponsored decals on the side of the car, both sides. This is how, then there's this big decal goes here somewhere. Looks like it's supposed to be centered there. There's a lot of extra space on either side. It looks like this is actually designed to come apart to pieces and spread out across the panel, instead of going on as just one single decal. When you look at it here, it seems to cover the entire panel, right? But when you put this decal here, it doesn't come close to doing that. But if they were separate pieces, they'd be way spread out, instead of just being like sitting here, being able to control it. This isn't, once again, it's just I'm doing the best I can with this model, aiming for, like, I picked this one because it didn't demand, I wanted it to be like an A, like the Savoia or the Lotus Ford. And it's like, this will be kind of a fun model to build. It won't be as challenging as some of the others. That isn't exactly how it turned out. This has presented some challenges. And some paybacks for trying to do shortcuts. Many shortcuts failed. These panels ended up taking at least a week longer than I had expected that they would, because my efforts at using a shortcut turned out to be very ill-advised. In that they turned out to be a disaster. Yeah, well, not a disaster. I mean, I recovered from it, but they were definitely an oops. They were definitely a don't do that. So the real challenge on this one was getting these panels painted. Okay. Because what I thought I would do, this was my shortcut idea, is that I would paint these white without priming them. Pretty much, I just didn't want to use my expensive primer on this model. Well, that turned out to be a big mistake, because the white spray paint didn't adhere evenly. I mean, not at all. And so I just had puddles everywhere. And I ended up using more primer, covering up the uneven white paint that I attempted to use to avoid using primer, than if I just primed it correctly to begin with. So that was the first mistake, is I wasted like 4 days spray painting, failing, sanding down some of the problems, and then priming it, and then repainting it. So instead of, the shortcut where I just painted it once, I ended up taking like 3 times as long by having to repair the work caused by the failure of the shortcut. Yeah. So that's this white paint up here, not the edges of the screens, but the white paint of the panel on the back. It finally ended up being that color after being painted, sanded, primed, and repainted. And then I thought, well, here's another shortcut. Okay. Is I looked at the color of the plastic. I thought, well, that's kind of white anyway, so I would just paint the gray. That was kind of a problem because the first paint I used was an old bottle of paint, and it wouldn't stick to itself. It kept pulling itself up off of the surface, so I had to get a different bottle of paint. Fortunately, I found one. And then I thought, well, what I can do is, instead of trying to paint these rims, all the fine line painting, is I can just scrape off any excess gray paint. Well, I tried that, and that was, that, to say the least, bad idea, because one, the underlying plastic is not white. In fact, it's really quite dark, and so it looked terrible. And two, the scraping didn't just scrape the paint off of where I wanted it. It scraped it off of other places as well. And so I ended up actually with scars. I mean, it scarred the finish pretty significantly in the one place where I tried it. And so that didn't work. That was, that's not going to work. Don't even try anymore. So then I had to go to I'm just going to have to paint these rims. And so I thought, well, fortunately, the one lucky thing that happened was that I found a white paint that actually covered in 2 coats instead of like 3. That was actually pretty lucky. Try to get as much of this out of here as I can without harming the integrity of the decal. Am I off camera? Probably. So then I ended up doing the iteration thing. Paint the gray, paint the white, paint the gray back where the white got onto where the gray is supposed to be. Paint the white again, paint a little gray. I think I had to go back and forth like 3 times. So that ended up taking probably like 3 times longer than I thought it would by using my shortcut that turned out to be a long cut. So that's the story of the multiple failed shortcuts on these display panels. I'm getting down now to where I'm putting these decals on. Following the advice of the book I read of trimming these as closely to the painted area as possible without cutting into it, because you don't want to tear your decal. It's possible to put the decal back together again. I've done that. I mean, when I was just letting them soak in the water, there were times when the decal would be torn, and it's possible to piece them together, but it's not a guaranteed success. So it's better to not cut into your decal or tear them. But I am cutting it as close to the edges as I can, even though the center of it, even though there are parts of it like here, and here where it's just the way it is. I could cut this in half. It's almost tempting to do that, to not have that in the middle. That would be fairly straightforward, I think. I might do that. I'm not sure. I think I'm going to. It might actually be easier to put this on as two pieces than one anyway. So I'm going to cut this in half. Half of it here, half of it there, and I don't know. I might have made a mistake. We'll see. Just in terms of getting them aligned, lined up again. But it actually will be. These are much more manageable in size when they're split in half. The downside, as I just said, is that it's going to line them up now because they're not automatically in line, right? Because they are separate pieces now. It's going to refold this. It's just not helpful the way it is there. So I separated the two, and one needs to be on this side and on the other, and they need to be kind of symmetric. So it just makes alignment a little more difficult on one hand, but actually simpler in another sense, in that they're smaller pieces. So this might take a while to get them lined up correctly. I'm not sure. getting the paper out. Yeah, I think it was a good idea to separate them just because of the difficulty of getting the paper out from underneath them. Okay. Now I need to have them kind of float. It's a nice crease in the middle here. Get That's not good. That was not good at all. It's folding in on itself too. There. That was not good. Guy, this little bit at the bottom is being a real pain. See where this one goes. How this goes. I might need to move this down. Yeah, it needs to come down from the top there because this has a blob on the top there. Which then has now disappeared. Great. Oh my, oh my. Come on, okay, there we are. Okay, this has to be, they're all folding up on themselves. I hadn't had that happen at all until just now. Okay, so if this is going to be like this, it can't rotate too much. That has to be up at the top. So this has to come down. How this would have fit otherwise. It would not have fit at all. Yeah, I'm not sure how this would have worked. There's no room for it. And this way I can get the decal on. But these were like parallel with each other. Or how that would have worked. Because then it goes over the edge. I think, this is going to look okay. It's almost like there's two workstations here, not just one. But to do this with the other ones as well. It's just, I think that looks pretty symmetric in terms of distances and orientation. Yeah, well, that's the way it is. That's the way it is. Okay, so the communications, I've got the weapons control panel and the communications panel done. And you can see them up there maybe if you look, but I'm not going to reach up. Okay. I can look at another one. I'm going to go to that. Do another one. Panel number 14. I do panel 14. That's this one. Panel 14 is here. It's there. Decals number 13 and 14. 14, 12, 10. Yeah. 10, 14. This is number 14. Decals 13 and 14. And decals number 8. That's this bit here. But more importantly are decals numbers 13 and 14. These two guys up here. One is a star field and the other is like a galaxy. These panels don't have names. They're nameless panels. Yes, this one doesn't matter which orientation it's in, but try to keep it right orientation. .13 that goes on the left side, and the galaxy goes on the right. I guess it looks better oriented the way they've got it. This putting on of the decals is taking, it's like everything else, right? Everything else on this stream is, I think I'm going to get this done, and then everything takes twice as long, sometimes more, but usually at least 50% more, frequently twice as long as I expected. In this case, the decals are taking, I really thought that's kind of, I had the expectation, the aspiration, the desire, the goal, the intent to, I thought I'd get them all on today, but I've got like an hour left, and at the pace I'm going, I'm just going to get this one done. How many are left? Oh, 2 more. Yeah, so I'll finish them Wednesday. I'm going to feel lucky getting this one done. Yeah. I don't know. Every time I do these decals, every single time, I am just amazed at how easily and quickly they went on when I was 10 years old. It's like, what the heck has happened in the interim? Why are they now suddenly taking like 3 or 4 times? Why are they taking so much more time than they used to? Why are they wrinkling so much? Why are they not in the correct orientation? Why don't they float the way they should? And then why do they float when they shouldn't? Why are you decals being such a pain in the butt instead of just like a really simple little thing to do right at the end of the modeling here? I wonder if these would have been better as stickers as opposed to decals. It wouldn't have been, because then the stickers would have gone on in the wrong places. There. So it wouldn't move at all in the direction I wanted it, and I wanted to move tiny little bit in the other direction, and it slid all the way across. Misbehaving decals. What? That rotating it sometimes helps. It looks centered now. So there's a star field on whatever panel this is, whatever it's supposed to be. It doesn't have a name. It's looking at the stars panel. It's looking at up at the stars panel. At least I'm not doing the multiple coats of clear coat and everything on them, because that would have been too much to expect of me. There's these don't fill the screen very well, but I'm trying to make sure they're symmetric within the screen panel. Okay, well, that'll do. Now I've got a whole bunch of these little squares again. These are in the way. I think I can like soak two of these at once, maybe three. I turn it upside down when I start cutting. I just discovered that. This is not a hint to modelers. It's just a description of what I'm finding for myself. Is if I am concerned about the orientation, if I start cutting it upside down, I end up with the top at the top, and then I know where the top is in case I'm concerned about the orientation of the little squares. So yeah, that's the top. For those of you who are younger and have things like memory, and you don't get confused over the span of a couple of seconds while you're cutting things out, you don't have to come up with little tricks like that. You just don't put them on upside down. Okay. I'm going to get a little bit impatient here in a sense and cut some more out. And maybe it'll go faster, and maybe it'll just make a mess of it. I'm not sure. I'm just going to try this with these little decals because I've got, the paper towel there. Applying the others, these can be sitting here absorbing water, getting ready to come off. Every once in a while, I look up at the screen to see if I'm on camera. If I had a good director and camera guy, that would never be an issue now, would it? But no, I will continue to complain about the quality of my director and camera person. And I know that my director and camera person, they don't take criticism well. Just what it is. They're not good at it. No, you can laugh. I am my camera person and director, right? I mean, I don't want, if somebody's listening to this, instead of watching it, you might not know that. You might not know that there are no other people. It's just me. And so if I'm off camera, it's because I'm not paying attention, not because my director isn't doing something about it. Or if the camera isn't covering what I'm doing, it's just me because I didn't pay attention and move the camera, so that it was covering what I was doing. So when I complain about those folks, just for those of you who are, as Lexi says, ear watching, that is like listening to it, but not really watching. You need to just know that there is no other person. There are no other people that I'm blaming for their incompetence. That was unexpected. That hadn't happened before. Oh my. I got it into place and I touched it with my thumb and it stuck to my thumb. If I hadn't noticed that right away, I might have just lost the whole thing. Well, that ended up taking way longer than it should, as I needed to start over by recovering the decal and replacing it in the correct place. That was kind of a surprise, an unpleasant little thing. I do have to talk to Alexis about getting the music back. So I don't have to like constantly be jabbering on about something. That's a good word. Nobody says that word anymore. Jabber. Good old fashioned word, right? It used to be a word. It's in combination is jibber jabber. I don't know where that came from. Probably something offensive. I mean, almost everything always is. If it is offensive, I apologize. I wouldn't know that. Or if people have no clue what I'm talking about, that's probably more likely. My left hand would work sometimes. It's not that it doesn't work. It's just that I'm so right-handed that I'm not dexterous with my left hand. Of course, I'm not dexterous with my left hand. Dexterous means right. Sinister was the Latin for left. Yeah, isn't that nice? So the word for right is dexterous, which is a positive word, and the word for left is sinister, which is, sinister. Left-handedness obviously was not. Well, I don't know if those words had different connotations. We added that later. I think there was a time when, for some reason, religious folks thought that the left hand was like the hand of the devil or something. I don't know. It's weirdness about left-handedness, and so it was you just weren't left-handed. Just wasn't allowed. Tried to, like, if you started using your left hand, they'd slap it and punish it until you rearranged your entire neural circuitry so that you'd be right-handed. But, then baseball came along and left-handedness became a real positive thing. Left-handed hitters, left-handed pitchers, became an asset to be left-handed. Or even better yet, ambidextrous, so you could be a switch hitter. This worked. I mean, in the sense that they're wet and like they're sliding off by the time I got to them. Doing any better getting them on. That one didn't even come close. Wow. It was pretty amazingly bad. It was both a good thing and a bad thing that these are going into frames. It's a good thing in that there are frames, so I know where they're oriented. It's a bad thing in that any lack of symmetry is really noticeable. Not symmetry, but yeah, I mean, being in the frame correctly. So there's 4 of them. Here's 4 more. Go ahead and do these the same way. I've got an hour left. Okay, well, I might be able to get started on, I don't know. We'll see. I'm not making any promises. buttons on the left. I'm not keeping things neat and clean. I've just got a pile of debris here. Debris there that's piling up. The debris pile over to the right, where it's supposed to be piling up, where it's out of the way. But nope, it's right here where I can like stick my finger in it. Oh, okay. While I'm doing this, I can talk about Dyson Dungeons. I try to do that every stream because Dyson Dungeons is a group of family and friend who put on amazing Dungeons and Dragons show. It's an amazing one. And it's not just we are playing in the basement, but we have a whole studio, kind of a real studio. And our DM has created a marvelous world in which we play. And we play our characters, I think, really well. You know, our character development has progressed nicely, and it's quite entertaining because I've watched some episodes, and even though I've been in them, it's like, oh, you know, we're doing a pretty good job. We're putting on a good show. So this stream is not it. This is a spin-off. This is the Mork and Mindy of Dyson Dungeons, or the Joni Loves Chachi, or the Fonz, or Frasier, whatever your favorite spin-off is. Dyson Dungeons, which is the real show. And this started because we make our own dungeon tiles, which every week or so I show off, just so you can see that we do our own dungeon tiles on these 3D printers here. And this stream started because they were being painted, hand painted. And our DM said, well, if you're going to be painting them, you might as well do a stream while you're painting. And I said, whatever. I have to paint them anyway, I suppose, if there's a camera on. When it started, there was music in the background, and I just did painting. And every once in a while, I talk about a little bit about what I was painting and why. Actually, not very much. And then the music disappeared because of some sort of issue that Twitch has with Nakarada's music that we pay for and have the ability to use. So it got knocked off and never came back on. Not here. We have the music playing in our D&D show, so you can hear it there. But then I didn't have to talk all the time. I don't now, I guess. I mean, you could just be in silence. Okay. Well, just to prove that, I'm going to be silent for just, yeah, not. I'm going to get the water where I wanted it. You can always tell, no matter what, the last hour or so of this, things start not going as well. I think it isn't my attention span. It's just after a while, low blood sugar, lose focus, whatever it is. I have learned to be careful about, burping in public. Be careful about what I attempt to do when in the stream, so that so that I start out doing things that require more fine motor skills. earlier in the stream, and then doing things later in the stream that are not quite as intense in terms of skill level. So in terms of like modeling skills, like the skill level you see on a box of a model, I start out at a really solid 2, maybe even a little more, depending on what I'm doing, what the task is. When I get into like the last half hour of the stream, I'm more at a skill level 1. So that's why I need to pay some attention to actually what I'm doing in the order in which I do it, so that I don't end up just making a mess of things. Last time I poked it with my finger, it came off. It wasn't a good thing. So putting these decals on, it requires some attention to where it goes, and trying not to rip them or lose them or fold them over on themselves or get too much water or too little water or whatever. But this is kind of like a level 1 thing, which is good because, like that, like I'm trying to move it and the whole thing just slipped. I learned to use the toothpick instead of my fingers. That seems to be works a little better. It's a fine example of being one-handed in terms of dexterity there. It's too much water and it floats all over the place. There's not enough water and it can't be moved into position. Decals, I keep saying this, decals were so much easier when I was 10 years old. Just let them float around in the water dish, pick them out with your fingers, kind of. I think I just slid them off, and sometimes they'd go where they're supposed to go, sometimes they wouldn't. After getting these more or less where they're supposed to be, then I get the big one on the bottom. I'll have to decide whether to cut that one in half or not. I'm thinking not. Well, I'm going to take it, I'm going to trim it, and then see how it looks. Oh, this one just is not, it's just not going where I want it. right near the end, and then just, getting one that's just misbehaving quite badly. It's one of those that looks fine in one direction and then not in the other. Okay, I want it to not move. Why am I poking at it? That's a good question. If I wanted it to not move from where it was, why did I keep poking at it? As I said that, I said to myself, well, stop doing that. It's like this every time. Every time I do that, it's the same thing. I have the grip on it and then I don't. Okay, I can feel myself becoming a little bit. You can see it. I'm getting a little, like, moving a little too fast, getting a little too impatient. Maybe it's the coffee kicking in. Maybe it's just late in the stream. So after I get this one not tilted, so it's not crooked anymore, to the right. Trim the big one for the bottom. And then decide whether to cut it in half or not, like I did with the communications panel. So let me do that. So yes, Dyson Dungeons, Dungeons and Dragons show streams on Twitch with a live chat on Sundays at 2-3 Sundays a month. You need to watch it and listen to it, enjoy it. It really is outstanding. Our characters are a lot of fun. Our DM is an extremely talented voice actor. She's really come up with sometimes just like, wow, that's a great voice, kind of thing. Just adds tremendously to the show. We stay in character really well, so you can tell when we're in character or whether we are acting as players. Okay, so it's not just watching some people play the game; it's actually a show. I mean, it's a real show, and it's quite well done. The studio is good. The cameras are good. The sound quality is good. It is a good show. Watch it, enjoy it, become a follower, become YouTube. You can watch them on YouTube later. The old episodes. What are the YouTube subscribers? And you can even go to patreon.com/Dyson Dungeons, become a patron, and help support the show. And you get access to DM notes and pre-recording warm-ups, which are usually hilarious. They're all everything's on, and we're really they're sometimes they're just really just like butt busting funny, I have to say, because sometimes I go back and listen to them and it's like, oh, I remember that was hilarious. And lately we've been asking AI to tell us about Dyson Dungeons, and it has come up with initially just absurd responses. I mean, just really funny stuff. Like we asked it to tell a story, and it had the moon in it. It mentioned the moon maybe like 10 times in 10 minutes. Everything was moon, moon, moon. Lately, though, it started hallucinating stuff. It actually started telling stories about things, about real people like us as players, not just as characters. Okay, so this one will fit okay without being cut in half, but I'm going to cut it in half anyway because it just, as I found, it was just easier to apply the two pieces, because when they're really big like that, they're hard to peel off. Even small, I had a problem. It's a problem doing that. Put this on top of this one, let it soak, and then switch them around. Yeah, so it was actually it weirded us out kind of. We asked it to tell us about our character, tell us about Zorion Sul, the Changeling Druid, and we put it into deep research mode, deep thought. And it searched all over the place, and it came up. It actually, with great confidence, even referenced specific episode numbers. But when we looked at it, that it made stuff up. It referenced a specific episode number, and it talked about things that never happened in that episode. Okay. Described things the character had never done. What was actually really disturbing is it started talking about the people who played the character, okay, us as players. It started talking about us as players and we're real people, I mean, obviously, I'm not AI generated. If I were, I wouldn't look like this, and I wouldn't be muttering like this. I'd be using way too many adverbs and adjectives. That was a characteristic we found consistently with AI, is that it just used way too many adjectives and adverbs, and it kept talking about how wonderful it was, and would you like me to do more? It was almost like begging for attention. Really kind of bizarre in that sense. But it made things up about us as people. It talked with, as I said, with great confidence about things that never happened. That just never happened. And we just went, what the heck? Where did it come up with that? How? This is a thing that never happened. How did it do this? Why did it do this? Why did that corner just fold over itself? How am I going to fix it? Wow. Okay, well, this is going to take a while. I need to make sure I float this, because it just folded on top of itself in a significantly bad way there. Oh, no. Okay, yeah, this is getting to be, I need to get these on and stop. Okay, it is getting to that point where I just need to get these more or less positioned, and then just stop, because something bad has already kind of happened, and I don't want more bad things to happen. If this one's ready to come off, I've got this little bit down at the bottom. Of course, I need to be concerned about that, because that's the kind of thing that will fold over on itself. really close to being symmetric. These need to line up here. As you can tell, I mean, if they're not in alignment, that's pretty obvious. And then this should be the same as this on both sides. Why is that one moving like that? If I wanted it to move, it wouldn't move, but it's shifting all over. So I'm lining that up with this and this with this. Cutting them in half, getting this in alignment is a little harder than if I had left them as one piece. But on the other hand, and there always is another hand, isn't there? It's just a lot easier to get them on and off. It was hard enough with this one where it started to fold in on itself in a significantly nasty way. What do you think? Does it look okay? Yeah, I know the shiny decals are always shiny like that. So I try to get it so that they're still shiny, reflecting off. You can't really see it, but in terms of location, symmetry, yeah, I think that's okay. Let me clean this up just a little bit. Yeah, half an hour left. Okay, I think I'm going to. Well, what I'm going to do is show off the ones that are done. Okay, this is done. This is the weapons control one, where it's shooting at a purple blob. This is the communications panel. Okay, and it's sort of symmetric, but the controls just aren't symmetric. They're just not designed to be symmetric. So that's that. And then this is whatever this is. That one. It's this one. And those three are finished. So I get to put them up there, cover them with a paper towel. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the big panels on whichever one this is, 12. 12 is that I just did 14. 12 is in between. That's this one here, decals 15 and 16 and 9. The best number, right? Decals number 9. These go on here. As do number 15 and 16. And of course, 60. Really? There's 17 all by itself. 18 and 10 all by themselves. So those are the next decals that go on. I'm not going to get to 9 today, so I'm going to put that up there. Those are the decals to be done, but these are supposed to be 15 and 16 going on panel 12. Panel 12. So they go there and there. Got kind of a diagonal little star field there. And a little planet with a moon, and the moon has a moon. What I'm not doing is I'm not getting to Kirk's shoulders. I'm going to let that green stuff putty cure until Wednesday, and do some more decals on Wednesday, and then sand away at Kirk's shoulders. Prime it on Thursday. I was thinking of getting to his shoulder today, but I think it's best to let that stuff set. I know you're supposed to be able to sand it within about an hour or so, but I'm just going to let it set for a day, 2 days as it turns out, because I only do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So on Wednesday, and I'll show you Kirk's shoulder after I get these decals on, mostly on camera. Really close to the edge there. I'm getting a little careless. It's definitely time to not do anything to skill level 1.5 or higher. Definitely not. Okay, this is some extra paper towel. I'm just going to layer them like this. Okay, so these go 15 and 16 there and there. And then I already showed you what I did manage to finish. So on Wednesday, I'm going to put the decals here and here. Okay, those 8 things in the control panel. And then I'll move on to number 10, which is this panel here, which goes next to number 8, which is right behind the captain. Number 8 is the communications panel, right behind the captain. Number 10 is there, and number 10 has decals 17 and 18 and 10, which happen to be the decals that I have left. That works out. Good. I'll have what I need when the time comes. After I get these decals on, then I'm going to test fit all of these. All of these panels are supposed to attach to this ring and each other. They won't. There's just no way that these things are formed well enough so that they're going to come together nicely. So I'm, just as with this, where they didn't, I'm probably going to use epoxy and test fit all of them, but then I'm not sure what I'll do. I might should I start in the middle and work out toward the edges? Maybe that's the best thing, because then I can start in the middle and kind of squeeze them together, and then hope at the end I can fill in any little gaps by compression. But you can count on the test fitting being kind of amusing, because they're not going to stand up. Okay, they just, there's no flat spot underneath these. They just, supposedly adhere to the bottom edge of this, adhere to the edge of the circle on the outside, this edge. Okay. Supposedly that's how it's supposed to happen, and that they come together and close the gaps between the panels. So I'll put one on and then attempt to hold that and do the next, and there's I'm going to be trying to hold all of these and keep them together. It should be pretty amusing as they keep flopping around and sliding all over the place and just being kind of altogether non-compliant. Wow. This one doesn't even come close to filling the screen. I'm amazed at how much there is around it. It makes it almost a little bit more challenging to get it symmetrically centered. Like some of these decals, actually, they fill the screen, okay? The screen, but in this case, it doesn't come close to filling the screen. I need to make sure that it's like the white stuff that's showing around it is fairly symmetric. Top, bottom, left, right. Yeah, making sure it's not tilted. I guess that's not bad. This one probably will be the same. It probably won't fill the screen. And it doesn't, although it fills it a little more than the other one does. Yeah, it wouldn't move, and then this happens so frequently. It doesn't move, and then it just flies across. It zips right across. Hard to tell. This is a black edge, and this has got the planet down the lower right, so it doesn't look symmetric, even if it is. The gap looks bigger down there. It does look, all the edges look even. So there is this panel. This is panel 12. Which goes here. Okay. I did 14. This is 12, and then 10 is the one that's left. That's how it looks. And on Wednesday, I'm going to fill these in and put the controls down on the control panel thing here. And then this is panel 10, which is the last one that goes here. And I'll be finishing the decals there. So Wednesday will be another decal day. Like I said, it took almost twice as long to get this done as I thought it might. It's little bubbles underneath. Sometimes they disappear when it dries, and sometimes they don't. And it is what it is. So there. there's that. On Wednesday, like I said, I'll finish this and then finish this, and the decals will be done. And then mess there. Keep the tools out. The other thing I'll be doing is I'll be looking for Kirk. Where did Kirk go? Did I lose Kirk? Huh. Okay, well that's weird. We got the other two guys sitting there. There he is. There. Kirk has got green shoulders here. And this will all be nicely set, and I will be sanding it down so that it doesn't look like, so it will look like his arms are attached to his body. Okay, I'll be sanding that. There's a lot of sanding because I put too much on, but it'll sand off. And he looks pretty awkward because he's sitting in his command chair. So on Wednesday, I'll be completing the Kirk so that I can prime it. And after it's primed, then I can see if it needs additional work in terms of seams or not. And then I'll be finishing the decals. Let me zoom out. Be sanding the Kirk and then finishing the decals on these guys. And then depending on how things are going, I'll either start doing test fitting of these onto the platform, this platform, test fitting these, or maybe getting the heads out and test fitting those. I'm guessing that they're gonna look pretty weird. Just see how that goes. So I'm gonna put Kirk up here with the other two bodies, and then try to remember to sand him down on Wednesday, and I'll cover this up like that. And I'm going to wrap up today. Hi, Aman. Thanks for dropping in. Oh, yeah. Actually, that's hilarious. I could try to do that. I could find pictures of them with their beards. Maybe I should. These are their heads. These are the backs of their heads. Okay. They've all got little weird things on the top because they've been controlled by aliens. Okay, but I could paint their beards on. I could make them their evil selves. That's the only way you can tell if they're evil or not, if they have beards, right? That's their evil self. At least that's what it was back in the 60s. That's how, especially if you had like a goatee kind of thing, that was definitely the sign of being evil. That would be, I don't know if I could pull that off or not, but wouldn't it be kind of fun to paint a goatee on Spock? I don't know what Sulu had or what Kirk had. I'd have to look them up. Maybe I'll ask Nikki and Lexi to do that. Between now and next week, because I'm not going to get around to painting these guys till next week. And I'll just see what my painting skills are like. So the thing with these heads, okay, they've got molding seams down the sides. It's kind of hard to see them, but you can see it under the ear here, okay, and along the hairline here. Right in the hair, of course, where it's really hard to get that out without messing up the hair look. But the two halves of the molds came together along here, and under the ear here, and along the top of the head. Okay, and then you've got these things up here that need to come off, and that needs to be sanded down so you don't have little pieces of plastic sticking up, or worse yet, little divots where these are attached. Okay, because the hair actually has some little, well, Spock's hair does. Sulu's hair has almost no texture at all. Oh, look at that. Huh. Kirk's got a DA. Oh, wow. I don't know if you can see that on camera or not, but yeah, the Kirk's got it comes way down here. I won't say what that means, but it's called a DA because it looks like the tail end of a duck. Okay, that's hilarious. Spock's hair is just, stiff black, bangy hair. Sulu is like, got a little wisp there, a little wisp of hair. So there's all sorts of detail on these heads. But the main problem is getting rid of the mold seams along the neck and along the top. And then they fit onto the bodies and all right, congratulations. That's really cool. Congratulations. So they fit onto the bodies, and I don't know if I'm going to have to try to seal around, fill in around the neck, or whether I can just say that the bottom, okay, no homebrew, so it's going to follow the DM's instructions. Whether I need to fill in around the neck and get rid of the neck seam, or whether I can just make it look like the collar comes up to the seam where it would make some sense. I'm not sure. I just know it's not going to be a simple thing. So maybe on Wednesday I'll start working on the heads. Maybe not. It depends on how the rest of this goes. So Wednesday I'll be finishing. I should be able to. I can almost assure that. Finishing the decals on these two panels. Okay. And doing some test fitting and sanding down Kirk's shoulders so that they don't look like action figure arms. I'm going to sign off now, like a few minutes early. Aman, thanks for dropping in. And it's really good news that you'll be able to play your character. That's coming up soon, isn't it? This coming weekend. Congratulations on that. And I'm looking forward to hearing how that all worked out with the other players. Thanks for watching. Become a supporter in any way you can of Dice and Dungeons. Become a follower, become a sponsor, a subscriber, a patron. Watch us. Let your friends and relatives and enemies and acquaintances and total strangers know about us. And thanks. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. And come back on Wednesday and watch more decaling. Watch more decaling and then some probably frustration of test fitting parts that don't go together very well. But thank you for joining in and listening. See you all on Wednesday. Bye.